Doug. I'm one of the co-chairs, joined by my other co-chairs, Elizabeth Ashby and Anthony Cohn, who you'll be hearing from in a little bit. Before I turn it over to Ian, with the board office to give you the rules of the road, and for those who haven't been with us before, I just want to clarify something right out of the gate, because there's been a flurry of activity in our community lately, and I think from our last meeting of the full board last week, I know everyone here is very involved, so we are aware that recent news of a planned shelter at 1114 First Avenue has come across our collective desks here in the community, and I know there is a lot of interest in that very topic. And for those of you signing on to hear about or to speak about that topic, I don't want to disappoint you, but we will not be addressing that this evening. Our agenda, as was posted a while back, has two items for this evening. The first is City of Yes for housing opportunity and its consequences for Community District 8. And as we have one of our frequent guests, George Janes, is with us, he will be first up talking about that. And then we will be talking about developments at the Department of City Planning. But just so you know, when we get to new business, board members or members of the public who may wish to bring up the shelter at First Avenue under new business, we have made a collective decision that that suggestion will be ruled out of order. We do not have information about that topic. However, we will, as a board, as a community, be discussing it, rest assured, at a future date. But we do not know when that is. In the meantime, though, if you are concerned, we would respectfully suggest to everyone who is concerned about that to reach out to Council Member Julie Menon, whose district the shelter would be in, to our newly inaugurated Borough President, Brad Hoylman, and of course, to our newest and welcome to our newest Upper East Side resident, the Mayor, Zoran Mandani. I understand he's out doing a little shoveling, so if you happen to see him, maybe you could talk about that with him. But with all seriousness, we will be talking about it, rest assured, but not at this meeting this evening. So if you came to talk about that or to hear about that, we just want to let you know that we won't be talking about it tonight, but we will at some future date. And with that said, I will turn it over to Ian in our board office, and he will give you our usual speech as to the rules of the road and how we operate at our committee meetings. Ian, it is to you now.
All right, thank you very much. Welcome. If this is your first time joining us, you will notice that you are currently muted, and everyone will remain muted throughout the meeting except the committee co-chairs and any presenters as we move through the agenda. Following the presentations and as we move through the agenda, the co-chairs will call on members of the public wishing to speak. You can participate by pressing the raise hand button on the bottom of your screen, not the wave or thumbs up button. Those will disappear. Only press the raise hand button once. If you press it a second time, your hand will go back down. If you are calling in on the phone, it is *9 to raise your hand and *6 to unmute. Be on the lookout for a prompt asking you to confirm unmuting once the co-chairs call on you. The chat is available for technical support only to help with Zoom software problems, not to ask questions of the co-chairs. They will not see the chat. If you're using an older version of Zoom, you may need to find the React menu, the Participants menu, or a button that says More, where you will find the raise hand feature. If you plan to speak during the meeting, it would help us if you would rename your device with your full first and last name. Please do not raise your actual hand or wave at the screen. We may not be able to see you, but the raise hand button will work wonders. Thank you all for being here. I'll also just briefly say in my district manager capacity, we appreciate many of you are very interested in the The shelter discussion, as Ed says, that is not tonight's agenda. We're working very hard to find a night with the Department of Homeless Services. You can sign up for our newsletter or keep track of our calendar at cb8m.com. You can also give my colleagues and I a call at 212-758-4340. We're here and always happy to help. Thanks so much, and on we go.
Thank you, Ian. That is terrific. And I will quickly pass it off to one of my co-chairs, Elizabeth Ashby, to introduce our first guest. Elizabeth, it is to you.
Thank you very much, Ed. It's a great pleasure to welcome George Janes, who is, as Ed has pointed out, one of our most popular speakers. I don't really have to introduce him because I think he's very familiar to all of us. So I will hand it over to you, George, and he will speak about City of Yes and its consequences for our district.
That's great. Elizabeth, thank you. And I am going to share my screen. And I also want to thank this committee and the chairs for asking me to come today. I put together these materials and it was really, really valuable for me. All right, so let me share my screen. And I'm going to share my screen, the right window this time. There we go. Good. You can see my screen, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Excellent. All right. So as I was saying, that this was a real adventure to put together because it involved looking over the past year of applications that we've been seeing in the district and looking at how the City of Yes shaped them. I'm going to apologize up front because there's a lot of very dense materials in here. But there is, I think, no other way to get into the details other than getting into the details. So with that, I'm just going to jump right in. So it's been a year since we passed City of Yes for housing opportunity. And as you all know, I think, is that City of Yes was a massive zoning text amendment with the goal to, quote, help tackle our housing crisis by allowing for a little more housing in every neighborhood. DCP told us that City of Yes would, quote, work differently in different areas, allowing for a lot more housing overall without dramatic changes in any one neighborhood. And so today, we're going to look at changes we're seeing in Community District 8 that have been shaped by City of Yes. We're going to start with 655 Madison. 655 Madison is planned at the northeast corner of 60th Street and Madison Avenue. It is on a zoning lot that takes up most of the block. It is partially within the special Midtown District, and the lot is split between C53 and C51 zoning districts. The site, which has been cleared, was occupied by the office building you see on the image, and it also includes a few tenements. With or without City of Yes, there could be a very large tower on this site, but City of Yes makes it much bigger. The proposed building at 1,162 feet is made possible by City of Yes. The building is using the new landmarks transfer in City of Yes. It is moving 135,000 square feet from the Metropolitan Club on Fifth Avenue over to this zoning lot. And that process was made legal by the City of Yes. Now, there are two different types of landmark transfers in City of Yes: the CPC certification and the CPC special permit. One is a ULURP action and one is not, and it depends on their size. This one just needs a certification. They avoided the special permit by merging their lot with the neighboring 520 Park Avenue, the building here, which is also a super tall. 655 Madison doesn't use any of the floor area from 520 Park. Instead, it just uses 520 Park to make the zoning lot larger to avoid the special permit and ULURP that would be required. It also gets 130,000 square feet from a subway improvement bonus. The subway improvement bonus was made legal here in 2021 with the Elevate Transit zoning text amendment. So while not City of Yes, the transit improvement bonus is on top of City of Yes changes, which allows for a very large building. How large are we talking about? So it's nearly 600,000 square feet, but the residential FAR, floor area ratio, stays at 12. Why? Why does it do that? It could have possibly used more of that floor area for residential development, but the multiple dwelling law still limits residential to 12 FAR if there is no affordable housing. It could get bigger if there was affordable housing, or it could have made a larger residential building or residential component if there is no affordable housing. And this development has no affordable housing. It does not buy affordable housing certificates. It produces no affordable housing. And that's because it gets all of the floor area it needs without any zoning affordability programs or bonuses. So before City of Yes and Elevate, the only way this building could have achieved 12 FAR residential was to produce affordable housing. It could have been on-site in the same building. It could have been, it could have been on-site different building. It could have been off-site in Community District 8. It could have even been nearby in Community Districts 5 or 6, using certificates to support existing affordable housing in expiring programs. By giving developers many options for floor area, City of Yes means that it no longer routinely produces affordable housing. So you were told during the City of Yes process that developers will max out their site by using all the tools, and this one did not. Now, Chair, I see a hand raised. Do you want to take it now or later?
Let's wait, if we will, George, I think.
Okay. Okay, so City of Yes also allows this building to waive bulk regulations. So this building needs 3 bulk waivers. It's not as of right. It miserably fails the Midtown daylighting regulations. Now, if you're not familiar with those, you have a very small portion of your district in the Midtown Special District, which has special rules for bulk requirements for essentially the building's massing needs to pass daylighting scores. And this one fails those regulations miserably. It also needs a rear yard waiver. It needs setback waivers. City of Yes and Elevate gives the CPC the power to grant these waivers through an authorization. So not only does the new zoning facilitate the concentration of floor area, but it also creates a pathway for bulk waivers without the BSA, without ULURP, and doesn't produce any affordable housing. It's like the zoning was written to give this developer everything he wanted without contributing to the district's affordability. So yes, I am biased against this project, and it comes through. So without City of Yes, the office building would likely have not been demolished, and the mid-block tenements, which you see here, which are part of the development site, were zoned C51, a 12 FAR commercial district with affordable housing. They probably would have been redeveloped eventually at some point, and they would have likely produced a 80-20 building, meaning 80% market, 20% affordable, with 20 affordable units, and it could have been on-site or off-site. Those potential affordable units are permanently lost with this plan for 655 Madison. Okay, a couple of others. 985 and 800 Fifth Avenue. So 985 Fifth Avenue and 800 Fifth Avenue. 985 is on the left, 800 is on the right. Both received landmarks approval for demo and rebuild. The building envelopes aren't radically changed. This is 985 Fifth Avenue, basically the same building form. This is 800 Fifth. Both buildings become a little wider with fewer floors as floor-to-floor heights increase. The planning issue with both of these proposals, not the landmarks issue, I think the planning issue is what they do to housing units. 800 Fifth Avenue currently has 208 residential units, while 985 Fifth has 46, for a total between them of 254 rental units, with a handful of those units still rent stabilized. The new building at 800 Fifth is planned to have 55 dwelling units, while 985 Fifth is planned for 21. That's a total decline of 70% of dwelling units on these lots. Part of the rationale for City of Yes was that more development would help address the housing crisis by making more housing units. These developments do the exact opposite. They destroy housing units in an attractive, high-resourced area right across from Central Park. In Community District 8, City of Yes is doing nothing here to discourage the destruction of normal-sized rental units in favor for the creation of enormous units that can only house very few. And not only does 800 Fifth destroy a net of 153 housing units, it will not produce any affordable units on site or off. The replacement building is planned to be smaller than the existing building that's there. It's slightly. It stays at 300 feet while losing 6 stories by increasing the floor-to-floor heights to give more airy apartments. And the probable reason for this design is 800 Fifth Avenue's existing special permit. So 800 Fifth Avenue has a special permit that it got in 1976. And if 800 Fifth increases any of the zoning waivers the special permit grants, that would be a ULURP action. And as a ULURP action, the council member or the community board, anybody could have asked for more affordable housing as a condition of the approval. By not increasing zoning waivers and staying within the existing building envelope, the action is a minor modification, which just requires a CPC approval of the new site plan. And, the question is will the CPC question the destruction of so many housing units and the provision of no affordable housing? Well, historically, no, not for a minor modification, but, they will be getting new leadership, which we will talk about later. 985 Fifth Avenue will produce off-site affordable housing. So 985 Fifth is in the Special Park Improvement District. Before City of Yes, the Park Improvement District did not permit the use of the voluntary inclusionary bonus. With City of Yes, zoning was modified so that UAP, the Universal Affordability Preference, applies to the Park Improvement District, and 12 FAR can be achieved with the provision of affordable housing. Now, DCP told you during the ULURP process, or the land use review process, that UAP would only apply on site, while the off-site option would be preserved for a period of 10 years for 4 sites that currently had that option. This is what DCP wrote, and let me read it in full. UAP is a simple zoning framework that does not include an option to achieve higher FARs by providing affordable housing off-site. However, this provision maintains an off-site compliance option for UAP zoning lots that have an off-site compliance option today. That is, zoning lots within inclusionary housing areas or R10 inclusionary housing areas, this limited offsite option will sunset 10 years after the date of enactment. Now, the 10-year sunset provision was removed by the CPC, the City Planning Commission, during the land use review process. But UAP remains on-site only with the limited exceptions that that are discussed above. So no site in the Special Park Improvement District had the option of using inclusionary housing. And if we believe DCP's description of UAP, then it is an error to permit 985 Fifth Avenue to use off-site inclusionary housing. And there are many, many errors in the City of Yes, which we will discuss at length later. Okay, 1491 3rd Avenue. So 1491 3rd Avenue just filed at DOB, but we don't have plans. We don't even have a zoning diagram yet. But we do know that the tower will be located on 3rd Avenue corner at 84th Street with the zoning lot going all the way to 85th Street and covering the entire block front. While we have limited information about the design, it's likely a tower on base like these you see here. And that's not a surprise because since 1993, nearly all the towers on the Upper East Side have been tower on base. The older designs are typically between 300 and 350 feet, while the newer ones are often about 400, 450, maybe a little bit more. 1491 3rd, we know, is planned to be 37 stories and 510 feet. So City of Yes kept tower on base, but modified the zoning to permit the use of more floor area. So all tower on base designs can now, with City of Yes, use what we used to call quality housing deductions. They can also deduct 5% for being a green building. These deductions allow for a larger building by exempting the floor area. So the tower on base rules needed to change to adjust the building envelope. So before City of Yes, the maximum base height was 85 feet. Now they can extend to 155 feet. The drawings, the diagrams you see here were diagrams that my office made during the process to show the difference between the current and the proposed. And you can see the taller base height in the new zoning. And we also know that 1491 3rd has been proposed for 120 units for an average of about 2,000 square feet per unit, which likely means a condo is planned using an offsite option. Most towers will do offsite affordable or provide no affordable at all. But, you know, the information on this is limited and more details will be forthcoming as they work their way through the process. But it's not going to be dramatically different from a lot of the towers that we see currently on the Upper East Side. So where does City of Yes work for affordability and why it matters? So HPD publishes a lot of data about affordable housing that have been developed. And its data shows that CD8 has developed 0 affordable housing units over the past year. Nothing. It also publishes a list of projects that intend to use 485X in the future. Projects that use 485X in Manhattan are also likely to be using City of Yes's UAP program. This map is a map of HPD data. It shows the nearly 200 projects intending to use 485X as of November 2025. There have been 6 projects in all of Manhattan and none in Community District 8. Condos are not permitted to use 485X in Manhattan, yet demand favors them, which apparently has resulted in no 485X and limited affordability in Community District 8. I have asterisk the no 485X because there is a project on First Avenue that appears to use 485X, but they haven't filed the paperwork to be included in HPD's data. So there may be one, and it may be in the next round of data, but it would only be that one. The city is producing a substantial number of affordable housing units, just not in Manhattan. And so the question is that okay? And you can have your own answers to that. But if we use the city's own metrics, no, not according to the city of New York, that's not okay. In 2025, the city adopted Where We Live NYC 2025, which is a fair housing plan. And the pattern that we're seeing so far is at odds with the second goal, which is build more housing in all neighborhoods across the New York City and the region, and increase housing opportunities, particularly for low-income New Yorkers in amenity-rich neighborhoods, like Community District 8. Later this year, the city will be setting housing targets. Future land use policies will need to be consistent with those housing targets. The 2023 Fair Housing Framework Law requires the city to develop 5-year citywide housing production targets, including total housing units, affordable housing units at 60% of AMI, supportive housing units, units that can accommodate aging households, low-income affordable housing preservation. And every community district will be assigned their share of these targets, and local land use policies must work toward meeting those goals. The city will also be identifying the 12 community districts with the lowest rates of affordable housing production, and those districts will be subject to CPC fast track. And land use actions in CPC fast track districts bypass City Council. City Council does not have a say on those actions. City of Yes has been billed as a major tool to help with affordability. But in your community district, Community District 8, it does not appear to be working. Where We Live states, quote, City of Yes for housing opportunity zoning reforms will create opportunity in places that have seen the least amount of new housing. But it hasn't in Community District 8, at least not yet. It matters because your district is a, quote, limited affordability area, but the tools DCP developed to address limited affordability are not working in your district. What could the city do? These are just a few that I've come up with off the top of my head, but consider new regulations to restrict demolitions and conversions that result in net unit losses. Reject the CPC special permit modification for 800 Fifth Avenue if it produces no affordable housing. Withhold the CPC authorization for 655 Madison Avenue if it produces no affordable housing. Require 985 Fifth affordable housing to be on site and treat its use of certificates as an error. And then apply that to all the park improvement sites. Or something else, right? I mean, there could be any number of solutions to this. Now, I talked a couple times, I mentioned City of Yes errors. And City of Yes has many, many errors. And errors in the zoning resolution. And they've always been there, but they've dealt with this process called administrative corrections. And administrative corrections are changes to the zoning resolution that are made by DCP. And they've been around forever. And most are for trivial or obvious errors. But with City of Yes, DCP has corrected about 200 sections of the zoning resolution related to City of Yes over the past year. On the right, you'll see the page, all the sections that have been altered. DCP decides when there is an error in the zoning text and then amends the zoning. And to be clear, most of these errors are tiny, but I found an error, and I want to share that experience with this board. So as a part of my review of the charter revision ballot proposals, I wanted to know if it would be possible for rezonings to go through ELERP or expedited ULERP, if those projects could happen without the mapping of mandatory inclusionary housing areas. And I remembered that the city of Yes included a requirement that R11 and R12 districts must only be mapped in MIH areas. But I couldn't find that text anywhere in the online zoning resolution. Like, have I misremembered? Was I hallucinating? So I went back to the text that was referred out to the community boards to see if it was there. And yes, the text I remembered was in the zoning resolution that you reviewed. There it is in blue. R11, R11A, and R12 districts may only be mapped in mandatory inclusionary housing areas. The missing text was also in the version approved by City Council. The CPC added the sentence after it, but it's right there. And the version that the City Council made law. But the sentence was missing from the version of the zoning text found online in September 2025. It was deleted from the middle of a section. It should have been right here. I was like, did they just fail to update the text online when it was adopted? Yeah, it goes from City Council to DCP. They got to upload it. Was there a mistake made? And so to see if it was a technical error, I went back to the zoning resolution that I downloaded right after the new zoning was adopted. And that change was in the version DCP distributed after the City of Yes was adopted. So the sentence was deleted from the zoning text after it was adopted and posted. And to be clear, this isn't a random sentence. So before this sentence, the mapping of MIH areas was entirely internal DCP policy. Requirements for when MIH areas are mapped are not in the zoning resolution. They're not described in an official DCP rule. It's DCP policy, which they've applied consistently. They've always applied it the same way as far as I'm aware. But the policies can change without a public process. And this sentence is the only place in the zoning resolution that I'm aware of that declaratively states that certain zoning districts must be in MIH areas. And suddenly it went missing. So I reached out to City Council. They responded immediately. They independently verified that the missing text, that the text was missing, and then contacted DCP. DCP said that there was an error and the missing text was put back, and it's there today. It can be found online today. And it is possible that the text was just deleted in error since the change was never marked as an administrative correction. It just disappeared. But at minimum, it's a concerning error. What safeguards has DCP put in place to prevent such errors from reoccurring? Because DCP can't just delete whole sentences from the zoning resolution, or can they? And it turns out, had the sentence been marked as an administrative correction, DCP could have just deleted the sentence. Such a change, it would not have been in the spirit of administrative corrections, but I think it would have been possible because there is no oversight on administrative corrections. There is no one looking over their shoulders, asking questions, or approving the changes. DCP has sole discretion over what is an error and what administrative correction they need to make to correct it. And while most of the changes are tiny, there have been consequential changes. And we know this because for the first time, the DOB had to issue a construction advisory on this very topic. And it's worthwhile to quote in this section in large here. So, quote, DOB wrote, due to the high volume of changes, applicants are strongly advised to review zoning text carefully and check for the black squares even after a permit is issued to ensure compliance with the most recent corrected versions. The black squares tell you that there has been a correction to that section. And then the DOB went on to say, unlike zoning text amendments that provide vesting opportunities of the old zoning text, filing subject to administrative corrections may receive new zoning objections at any point, even after DOB permit issuance and prior to the issuance of the final certificate of occupancy, which is amazing to me. So how does this relate to Community District 8 and what we've been talking about? So DCP was clear. The offsite affordability option should only apply to sites with that option pre-City of Yes. 985 Fifth Avenue never had the option to do affordable housing offsite, and yet it is using offsite certificates, which is contrary to DCP's written guidance. DCP could not have been clear on the zoning's intent. So if they need to correct a loophole found by this developer, they should correct the zoning as they have done 200 times over the past year. If they do, this developer will have to provide affordable units on site, just as all other developers will need to do on sites that could not use the offsite option. The administrative correction would provide evidence that DCP meant what they wrote to you during the process and did not misrepresent how the zoning would work. And then finally, unrelated to your community district, let me just ask the question, shouldn't there be some oversight? It just seems like a mistake. I'm not a lawyer, but it seems like a mistake to let DCP identify errors and then change the zoning resolution without any oversight. You know, during the process to amend zoning, we argue over words and their meaning, important words, words that shape the future of the city, words that become law. And after that process, DCP gets to decide that some of those words are a mistake. They can change them without anybody else saying that's okay. I don't know. That just seems wrong, especially if it's being done at the scale it's being done. Just last month in December, DCP corrected another 19 sections a full year after City of Yes passed. We know the sections, but we don't know the substance or the reason for the corrections. Now, let me be clear. Mistakes and corrections, they're normal, especially when we make such massive changes. But should corrections to zoning be made without any oversight or explanation? And then I have a few final thoughts, and then I hope there can be some discussion. So it's absolutely true that large portions of Community District 8 have been losing housing units on a net basis in recent years. And this is not the fault of City of Yes. It is the continuation of a long-standing trend. This map shows the change in number of housing units from 2010 to 2025. And if you look, especially on the western part of the district, so many of these blocks are losing up to 10 units, 10 to 50 units. Substantial numbers of housing units are being lost. And that's conversions, that's combinations. It's due to a number of factors. But City of Yes has done nothing to stop the trend, and it seems to be likely to exacerbate it. And it's frustrating because we told DCP that City of Yes couldn't address affordability and housing unit loss on the Upper East Side. But those discussions happened after City of Yes certified. DCP couldn't include new proposals after certification, even if they wanted to. And they probably didn't want to. A year after City of Yes, we continue to praise ourselves for passing new zoning that does not help and likely exacerbates this district's issues with affordability and fair housing. 1 year later, we are still nowhere near solutions for net housing unit loss and fair housing on the Upper East Side and, frankly, other parts of the Manhattan core. But past is not necessarily prologue, right? We have new leadership in the city. We will soon have new leadership at DCP. If your board thinks that the issues that have been outlined here are a problem, you should have an informational meeting with DCP to review those problems. You should be prepared to discuss the potential solutions to those problems. They might include these solutions which I discussed earlier, or other things, right? There can be any number of solutions, and they could be tailored to address the conditions of your district. See the leadership change that we have in our city as an opportunity to be proactive, because there will never be a better time to address the issues of your district. That's all I got for today. I'm happy to answer questions or participate in the discussion.
Well, thank you very much, George. That's not making us happier, but it's making us more informed. And we'll go to the public first for questions. Ian, or any hands up from the public?
I see Elaine Walsh.
Okay, Elaine Walsh. Would you
Okay,
unmute her?
There she is.
thank you for the presentation. I have to say that I was laughing through some of it because it's so sick. The whole issue of affordability in our district has been an issue since elected officials made deals that put affordable housing outside our district and in particular into the boroughs. This was been done historically, so I'm hopeful that this site on Fifth can be a moment to stop this. But I have a question that goes into City of Yes with the issue of transfer of air rights. And we're seeing, like on 79th and Lexington, that a number of the townhouses, schools, churches, from my understanding, are selling their air rights, and it can go now over the streets. And so I was hoping you could address that issue about transfer of air rights under the City of Yes, as well as the 3rd Avenue and 84th Street site. On the side street of 84th Street, it goes down 140 feet, I think. So the first 100 can be tall, but the other has to come under R8B. And what are, under the City of Yes, any changes to the R8B height that we need to be looking at? Thank you.
Okay, so on the first question, the transfer of development rights. So City of Yes, the major issue with the transfer of development rights is the expanded landmarks transfer. So that landmarks can now transfer their floor area much further. That's why the Metropolitan Club was able to sell its air rights to, or development rights to 655 Madison Avenue, which is, a block away. It's still, development rights cannot, if there's no landmark involved, still cannot be transferred across streets. Now, I will tell you, Elaine, that people are getting really good at the transfer of development rights, and so they're getting very creative with the formation of zoning lots, but they still can only be moved within the block if there are not landmarks involved. There are a couple of special districts where that's not true, in Lower Manhattan, but not in your community district. On the second question, so the R8B, it's essentially still the same building envelope unless there is affordable housing in the building. If you have affordable housing in the building on the R8B, you can go up to 95 feet. It seems likely to me that this development will provide affordable housing offsite, and so that the R8B would stay at 75 feet, but we don't know that, right? They haven't filed the detail with the Department of Buildings yet. So there's a lot of speculation on that one, on 3rd Avenue and 84th Street.
Right.
We'll know more when it gets more mature.
Because they're also putting in parking, and we don't permit
Yes,
that
they are.
south of 96th Street. So
Yes.
they're going to have to come in for some variances.
So you are allowed to have parking. There is a limit to how much in your community district. It can be no more than 35% of the units. Don't quote me on that, but I think that's it. And so if they stay under 35% of the units, they can have parking.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Elaine. Any other members of the public?
I see no more members of the public. Members of the public, though, I would remind you, you can press the raise hand button if you wish to speak.
Okay, we'll begin with the board. And who was the first of
Adam Wald.
Adam? Adam, your turn.
I think we should all appreciate how great a resource George is. We may disagree on some things, but that's okay. You should all be very appreciative that he's willing to come and speak to us and tell us these wonderful things. I personally had George as a speaker on something related to my work. One thing, George, is at 655, I understand the developer has 30,000 feet of inclusionary they're going to put on the site. So there will be an offsite compensation.
Okay, that's not in the materials they've submitted thus far.
That's okay, but they don't, I mean, that's
it's unclear that well, okay. If they have 30,000, it's probably related to 520 Park Avenue, which does have inclusionary housing, and it's on the same zoning lot. And considering the size of this zoning lot, I don't know. Adam, that would be very interesting to know that, but I am sure that there will be inclusionary on the zoning lot. It's just unclear to me whether it would go to this development site.
And then on the other thing, on the corner of 86th and 1st, we talked about it when we had our zoning rules.
Yes.
They're doing 2 side-by-side 99 units. So
I don't know why they haven't filed their paperwork with HPD, because it's not showing up in HPD.
So in terms of looking at the neighborhood, what's been taken away and what's being added, that site was contemplated to be a condo.
Yes.
And now it's going to have 40 affordable units. So
absolutely.
That's just one of, I think, a few more that are coming in the neighborhood. So
it would
progress,
be
step by step progress.
So one of the things I tried to say, we haven't seen progress yet, right? And these things take time, and it's been a year, but a year when it comes to these things with the development cycle is actually not that long. And we did know about the First Avenue site. The only thing that makes me wonder about the First Avenue site is, might they be doing a post-approval amendment? Might it end up being something different than what they initially filed? We're seeing a lot more post-approval amendments come up. Maybe that's why they haven't filed their paperwork with HPD on the 485X. I don't know. You probably know better than me the methods that developers use, Adam. But I just know they're not appearing in the database, and I don't know why.
I think it's likely forthcoming.
Thank you very much, Adam. Now, I believe Sherry Weiner is the next. Is that correct?
Correct.
Yes,
Okay, Sherry, up to you.
I jumped and put my hand up. You know, it's just mind-boggling. I mean, we were sold a bill of goods that we had to approve the city of Yes, though if this community board didn't, because we have to have affordable housing. And now in our district, they're just tearing down what affordable housing we have, and we're getting all these much more high-end. Question, is one of the buildings you're talking about the Spitzer building on 5th and 79th that
Yes,
what
that's right.
is the address there?
985 Fifth Avenue.
Yeah, I mean that is absolutely ridiculous. They're tearing down a very, it is a rental building, but it certainly looks in very good condition to be tearing that whole thing down so he can put up more affordable. My last question is, I'm curious, how do you think the new administration feels about the city of Yes? Will you be discussing that when you talk about the new people at planning, or do you know where they are? And with Garodnick leaving, I mean,
There's a lot we don't know about that, right? I mean, they don't have new leadership yet. They haven't picked a new chair. We don't know. And in fact, I've been trying to engage with staff at the Department of City Planning on the administrative corrections, and for the past month, and I get nothing. And essentially, they don't have leaders. Right? They don't have leadership there, and so they are waiting until they have leadership. And so it's hard to know for sure. I mean, listen, let me be very clear, is that I think for much of the city, especially in the Bronx and in Queens, you have a lot more affordable housing being developed because of City of Yes. It's just that in this community district, the solutions that were developed don't fit it well.
and we're going to be punished as one of the 12 certainly lowest producing affordable housing under the new regulations, and we'll have no city council input, and they're going to put in whatever they want, and the community will have no input.
It's
So,
a risk, right? That is a risk, and the tools that DCP provided in zoning to help with affordability, yeah, they do work some places, but in the Manhattan core in your community district, they don't, and ultimately those numbers count, right? They're going to be ranking the community districts, and the bottom
and
12
we're going to be
will
right in there, right?
lose their their
Input.
council vote, right?
All right. Thank you, George, so much.
Thanks, Sherry. Now, Marco, your turn.
Thank you. First of all, it shouldn't be a surprise that the developments on the avenues do not produce affordable housing because never was part of the city of Yes. The city of Yes was targeted to destroy the RAB with 55 market value and 11 affordable housing, even though right now there is 80 in the same lot, 80 affordable units. So the issue was misleading or didn't understand, and we support that. That is wrong. So let's go keep talking about in the avenues. Yes, Michelle and I, we did a study on one section, and the pattern is the same like you described. Rather to build 100% the density, which is the number of housing in the buildings, they build you only at a rate of 24 to 54%. So we are not producing housing for at least middle income families. They produce just only for the more affluent people in our community, and that's it. So it's no surprise now on the eastern side of Lexington Avenue, there is a pattern. We know that in landmarks, because I think it's, well, Anthony, I think I disagree. The approach of the co-chair that we have just only mentioned, just only the one part of the landmarks, when in reality we had to mention that we are losing affordable housing. All of these developments that come into our community, all of them, they transform 18, 19,000 square feet in one family house. I mean, it's personal myself, I don't have no problem. But at least we had to create a policy that they had to create affordable housing somewhere in our community. Yeah, you can reduce, that's fine, but produce affordable housing. In addition to that, this area, the infrastructure, I'm talking about water, sewer, and other urban equipment will be underdeveloped because of these low densities developments. So I think it shouldn't be a surprise for us what happened on the avenues. And that is one of the complaints that Michelle and we has been talking to all the reps in our community, and they didn't listen because I don't know why. And that is my major concern. And the other issue is in the only part of the city, yes, it is correct, is the development at 655 Madison Avenue, that they transferred the air rights. But this is we have to discuss even deeper in that project, because the way that they try to present it to us or to sell to us is, if you don't give me what I'm requesting, I'm going to be a taller building. And purposely, they put a lot of mechanical rooms, regardless if they need it or not. Well, at the time when was created that senseless policy created by our neighborhood under harass and the strong pressure of the city council that we couldn't make our own decisions, he was right there. We couldn't even go against his point of view. And now they think that they're gonna get away with these mechanicals. They have to prove now, because now there is new regulations in place to avoid this abuse of the mechanicals that make taller and taller those buildings. And finally, I should say, yes, we can create affordable housing. And one of the issues was it creates an opportunity to stop all developments. And I think it's Elizabeth, that is your idea, to limit it to 110 the buildings. And then if they want to build something, Elaine too, by the way. And if you want to build something else, yes, they can build 12 with affordable housing, either inside of the lot or outside of the development. Finally, about the transfer of the air rights. The transfer of the air rights is one of the worst idea or the worst policy that I can ever see. It was implemented just only to preserve substandard of housing, because those properties that transfer the air rights, they have environmental control violations, and they receive millions of dollars, and they don't want to replace, they don't want to repair nothing. Just only want to take the money. Just only they had to have a gratification because they transfer their rights to the biggest development, and we have a super tall buildings. I think that is the problem, and thank you.
Thank you, Marco. Dylan, please.
Hi, I just wanted to, oh, sorry about that. I just wanted to ask a quick question, and I'm pretty sure the answer to this is we will find that out later. But just ask George Janes, do we have a sense of the overall numbers? You talked a lot about these individual projects, and I know there was a little bit of back and forth on the exact details of those specific projects. But when might we expect to see a here's how many housing units both CB8 and the city as a whole produced prior to City of Yes. And now that, we have enough data, this is what we expect, or this is the first year where it would have impacted. Because I think just seeing those numbers, both affordable and not, and for CB8 and the city as a whole, will be really helpful in covering the big picture of these changes. And I wonder if you have any expectation for, one, if those numbers do exist, which I expect they don't yet, but if they don't, when we might be able to see a breakdown like that.
So HPD has been doing, and DCP have been doing a great job of updating data in near real time at in open data, right? So we have housing production numbers, we have affordable housing production numbers. The issue is it comes like, this was a project that started beforehand but finished afterwards, and how you draw that line. But you could. I was focusing on the affordable units that were produced. We could have done the total units, but we could do something like that relatively easy now.
Okay.
It's just with the caveat saying, yeah, there's it depends on where you draw the line. And like I was talking about with Adam, it's like, there's sometimes issues with the data. Somebody doesn't fill out their form right. But that's just the reality of dealing with real world data. So if the board wants me to produce something like that, happy to do it, easy enough to do it.
Yeah, I won't speak for the entire board, but I do think that would be informative. And obviously our focus is mainly on affordable units. But, you described in there about some of the downsizing, and I believe often in those downsizings, they are removing, market rate units. And that's obviously still bad. That's less housing. Even if there isn't an impact to the number of affordable units, fewer market rate housing can impact the rest of us. So given that more market rate housing is kind of undoing at least some of that, the question is how much is it undoing it? And so that's why I think those numbers would be really informative.
I will also say this, the harder part of this, and this is where DCP doesn't do as good of a job, or HPD, is the net, right? So they're good at tracking new stuff, but on Fifth Avenue, you're losing more than you're gaining. And so they don't do a good job with the demolitions. And we can get demo data from DOB, and it can be calculated. It's just that it's not as good in open data than the housing production numbers.
Yeah. Frustrating that data is splintered that way, but again, very much appreciate whenever we can see those numbers. And thank you again for your presentation.
Thank you very much. The other Elizabeth is up.
Thank you, Elizabeth. And George, thank you. I always appreciate your passion on this, and appreciate that some of the ideas that we have been bantering about back and forth and putting into our response to the Manhattan Plan and subsequent communications are making it into your presentation and getting a wider audience. And in particular, the notion of we need regulations around demolition of units and replacement by fewer units. That does not serve the city well, or at least it does not meet the goals of City of Yes and the purported goals of increasing total net units across the city. So thank you for that. I do want to go back to the three specific buildings that you spoke about most, just to clarify what is a result of City of Yes and what could have happened without City of Yes. Because there is a little bit of conjunction here.
Absolutely,
that's happening
there is.
here. So 655 Madison, it sounds like there are two things that I think are specific to City of Yes. The first is the 135,000 square feet of transferred air rights.
Yes.
And if I'm correct, that's out of almost 1 million square feet total that building is going to be.
That's right.
So 15%?
That's right.
plus or minus. So that building will be 15% larger than it otherwise could have been because of City of Yes.
Mhm.
And so I think part of the real problem here is simply that building could have been enormously large and tall regardless. And City of Yes exacerbates that a little bit, but it is simply that that site allows for a ton of FAR.
Yes, well, and the subway improvement bonus. And so
Yeah. The subway improvement bonus is not City of Yes. I mean, that pre-existed.
I will, yes, you are right about that, but the subway improvement bonus that this is using is the one that was passed in 2021 during COVID. And people weren't paying attention to that.
Right. So
And
the question, and I think we've
Yep.
talked about this in a couple of other forums, can buildings and developers sort of add bonuses on top of each other ad infinitum? And I think that was a question that we raised during the City of Yes presentations. I don't remember what they said at the time, but that might be worth our cycling back, because I do recall we asked questions like that,
right,
and to see what they said at the time.
right. And this, if you look at the wonderful floor area ratio table that they have in their materials, in their plans, I mean, they're the numbers that they get to are extraordinarily large. I mean, they're very, very large. And right, sorry, go ahead.
So the second thing that's specific to City of Yes, that you didn't dig into a lot, but I think it's important for us to come back to it, is the notion that they are going to have 12 FAR residential.
Yeah.
Because I thought City of Yes was still, you only get to 12 FAR residential if there's affordable housing, if there is 20% affordable. So how do they get to 12 FAR without affordable here? Or am I just totally wrong?
No, that you can get to over 12. So that was one of the things we talked about during the process, was that there were other options to get to 12 FAR. That's what City of Yes changed. City of Yes. So before City of Yes, there weren't other options to get to 12 FAR, and now you can. You can use the landmarks, the landmarks transfer and other things to get the 12 FAR, as they're doing here.
But that gets you more square footage, but I thought you still, and this is where maybe there is some misunderstanding, or there was miscommunication, or there was, if you needed the FAR, you could get more FAR through the landmarks transfer, but it was not clear that you could get to 12 FAR without affordable. Like if you had FAR, let's say you have a site that, you only have 8 FAR on, you could get the transfer of air rights to get you more FAR, but that still didn't allow you to get to 12 unless there was affordable. That's what I thought City of Yes required. And so this is really mind-blowing.
Well, let me say this,
that regardless of how you get the air rights, I thought you couldn't go above 10 unless you had affordable.
So it is now. This is going back to something that Adam said, is that they are merging their zoning lot with 520 Park, which does use inclusionary housing bonuses, right? It's an existing building that it was just built. It's enormous, and it gets to 12 FAR through inclusionary housing bonuses. So I will, and so maybe what you're saying, I will look into this, Elizabeth, because this is an interesting question to me. Are they doing something that is using somebody else's inclusionary housing bonus to get to where they want to be? But I think my understanding of the way this is that they have a little note in their plans with that they filed with DCP, and that note says, and I will read it: total district reflects as of right allocation of residential floor area at 12 FAR across the development site. And so it is 12 FAR across the development site, all of it. And I think it's worthwhile to investigate this a little bit more fully. But my understanding is that with all of the paperwork that they filed with DCP, because they need to get an authorization and a certification. So there's a full application, full land use application that's hundreds of pages long on ZAP. I will review it again to make certain that I have not misinformed people. If I have, I will issue a correction. But my understanding is that they are using other methods to achieve 12.
Okay. I genuinely feel like this is either DCP deliberately eluded over this in their presentations to us. It seemed to me that the entire intent of City of Yes was you got the extra 2 only if you got affordable housing. So Adam clearly is sort of like, yeah, Elizabeth, you missed this one completely. So maybe we need a little more time on it in another forum.
Sure,
I do want
absolutely.
to just move on for a quick second. It sounds like absolutely nothing at 800 Fifth Avenue is related to City of Yes. That they're not getting any extra floor area, they're not getting any extra FAR. The real issue with 800 Fifth has nothing to do with City of Yes. It's simply their ability to demolish a building and rebuild it with half as many apartments.
So, in the main, you're right, right? So there may be, on the edge, the idea that you can have the quality housing bonuses where they couldn't have them before. But in the main, you're right, because they're not even maxing out the development site. So they're not even using that. So yes.
Okay. And 985 Fifth, we know they got an extra plus or minus 11,000, 12,000 square feet, and they're doing offsite certificates, which at least the way City of Yes was presented initially, they should not be allowed to do.
That is correct. And prior to City of Yes, you were not allowed to use those in this special district.
Right. So they're, do you want to argue, is it better to have them able to buy those certificates or not? Not an argument that we need to get into right now. I am going to posit that right now we're dealing with a very small number of buildings. I'm going to be hopeful that more buildings will emerge that do in fact include affordable housing, and that right now what we're dealing with could be a very small data set. What is clear is that City of Yes is producing bigger buildings. And what is clear is that the incentives for affordable housing on the Upper East Side may not be working. So thank you. Much appreciated.
Thanks, Elizabeth. And now Ed?
Thanks, Elizabeth. I just had a quick question, George. I was curious. I may have missed it, but has the mayor appointed a new buildings commissioner?
Oh, yeah. Yeah,
Yes.
DOB. Oh, yeah. Ahmed Tagani, who's, you may remember, he was Gail Brewer's land use person. I know him well. He's great. like after the commissioners that went to got indicted, like he's really, like, it's amazing. And like he's a real public servant, a real mensch. He's like a good guy. And so I was thrilled to see his who he picked.
Great. Just checking. Thanks.
Thank you, Ed. And the next person is DJ Faulkson.
Thank you. Oh, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, there we go. Sorry. George, thank you as always for the informative presentation. I always kind of learn something new getting into the weeds as deeply as you do. I think it should be commented, the City of Yes for housing opportunity reforms were largely aimed at lower rise, lower density districts. I know they did talk about everywhere, but I think it was clear from the changes, where they were really focused. When you look at things like the town center changes, the transit oriented development, especially the removal of parking mandates, which we already don't have in our district, but that's still a problem in some outer borough neighborhoods. It was really about moving projects forward that, could have been marginal or feasible in those areas from an economic standpoint, but were just not allowed. And now we're seeing that growth happen. I wasn't too surprised to see places like Astoria with a lot of the projects on that map you showed, which was very interesting. But that means by design, most of the new housing capacity is going to come from parts of the city that were those, underzoned areas rather than already dense districts like ours. I appreciated the map at the end showing net unit loss from conversions and combinations, which I think you've showed at a previous presentation. We've kind of seen
I updated it.
Thank you. And the acknowledgement that it's a long-standing trend. It is long-standing because, I think as Ed, you've commented before, the underlying economics, the transit context have really changed over time for the neighborhood, which has altered land values and incentives quite a bit. George, you presented some proposed solutions. I think some of them were kind of very targeted around the projects that you were focused on in this presentation. I guess where I'm concerned is that they're largely reactive to things that we're seeing here. They would limit or slow down the kind of changes you describe at specific sites or future sites, but they don't really propose, proactive zoning changes that would enable new affordable housing to be built. So adding restrictions might mean just less happens overall. I don't know if it makes more construction likely, which I think we've kind of agreed sometimes that we need, or at least fewer demolitions. I also think as a board, and I know I'm new here and some of you have been doing this for a long time, so take it with a grain of salt, but we haven't really put forward a meaningful alternative vision aside from the residential task force, which I think really did serious work identifying all of those sites for rezoning. There's the special districts, the R10A, the height caps, which is still referenced in the district needs statement. I need to dig into that more. But talking to others, I've heard them described both as kind of a fake leaf that isn't really going to solve anything, as well as, some of you who worked on that really think it's a tool that would ensure more affordability. But I'm concerned that height limits, especially when layered with other constraints, are not likely to be part of a framework that actually produces more affordable housing. So I know we're starting to have this discussion with every meeting now, especially after the ballot propositions, but what is going to produce more affordable housing in the neighborhood? I think we need to start coming with, bolder solutions in our already dense neighborhood. For me, I think that means being explicit about R8B as a constraint. I think concrete steps could include some targeted corridor rezonings that still preserve street wall controls, but maybe allow more height, more floor area, especially closest to transit stations. That's just one idea, but I think we're going to have to talk about the constraints that really exist that are longstanding, which have contributed to the longstanding problem that George showed us. Thanks.
Thank you. Valerie.
Hi, George. Thanks for the presentation. A couple of comments and then a question. I mean, I think you mentioned that we're not the only community on the island of Manhattan that is experiencing this. I think CB1 is also another large, highly dense area that is also not getting any affordable housing. And I apologize. I had to listen to most of the meeting on my phone. I don't know if you can tell right now what the worst 12 are going to be. Obviously, it's going to be us. But, I mean, how many of the low performers are actually going to be the highest density districts? Because it seems like that would be the case. I mean, if we're already highly dense, how much more housing can we have? I mean, it's like a self-fulfilling prophecy that we're going to appear on the list. There's no more room to build anything.
I can address that by saying we cannot tell you for sure who is going to be on that list because the final method has not been determined. However, it's been described as the rate of production of affordable housing by community district. So you take the total number of housing, you take the total number of affordable units, divide it by the total number of housing, and the 12 lowest on that rate will get ranked. And I've had issues with that because, like, what about AMI levels? What about the size of the units? And it's unclear how they're going to adjust for that, or even if they are. Right.
But I mean, is it just going to be CPC that puts the formula together, or is that going to be combined with the city council in some way? Or
it's been assigned to DCP with HPD input. So both of them are supposed to be determining that method.
Yeah, I mean, because to me, at least part of the calculation should be how much empty space do you have in your district that's not being utilized for any housing. That should be part of the calculation too. I mean, you can go to places in Brooklyn and Queens that have tons of empty, just empty lots. I mean, they're not all brownfields, or they aren't capable of being built. And those should be part of it as well. I mean, if you have underdevelopment, that should be one thing, I think. And the other thing is, I mean, everybody, again, and Elizabeth Rose knows this too, is, they always point fingers at us that we have all of these combination of units. And one of the reasons we have a combination of units is because people come to the Upper East Side as singles and start to have families, and it's impossible to go out and buy multiple bedroom units. It's always, not always, but can be far cheaper to buy another unit and combine apartments. And these are just families trying to stay in the neighborhood because the developers haven't really built any affordable multiple bedroom side. Right. So again, we get condemned for people who for trying to stay in the neighborhood, if you will. Right. And that's not taken into account anyway. And by the way, I mean, I think all of us worked really hard on City of Yes. And I don't think to a person, anybody on this board thought that it was going to result in one more affordable unit on the Upper East Side. UAP, I don't think has ever been a carrot to dangle in front of the developers who are on the Upper East Side for them to build affordable housing on their very expensive property lots. I mean, I just don't think that is the reality. And I think to a certain extent, and again, this is my I think a lot of the electeds are being disingenuous when they talk about putting affordable housing in certain neighborhoods, because those are the neighborhoods where they are collecting the highest tax revenues from transfers of real estate and et cetera, et cetera. And it doesn't make economic sense from that point of view to do it. So I don't think that anybody who looked at City of Yes really thought that that was going to result in any more affordable housing on the Upper East Side or in Fidei or in Tribeca. But it made them feel good that they were doing it. The proposals that we put forward from the task force, which were real solid proposals for taking lots that have been zoned, manufacturing and turn them into affordable housing, we basically were rebuked by the city planning people and told, go out and find a developer and come back to us. So I don't, I would like to see some real seriousness on the part of when I say administration, I'm talking about the bureaucracy of New York City housing and development and city planning that really shows that they're interested in doing this, because so far it's not a real thing. And we have been trying really hard to make it a real thing, but I just, I don't see that. I mean, we've had this discussion before. I think it's more, when we went forward, tried to get 210 height limit as sort of a bargaining chip to get infrastructure, to get affordable housing. I mean, I think City of Yes for our neighborhood didn't do anything. What we should have been adjusting is an as of right build policy that has been sticking around since 1960. What was as of right in 1962, in 2026, should you really have the same as of right rights that you had back then? I mean, if we're really talking about, affordable housing in certain spaces, because I know at least where I live on 72nd Street and 2nd Avenue, we have 3 new luxury housing towers that are going to go up as of right. They don't need to be more than 25 or 20 stories high. And we lost really valuable affordable housing units in the form of the walk-up apartments. We lost 16 walk-up buildings within a block. And we lost all of those units. And they will never come back. And those people are gone from the neighborhood, as well as the small mom and pop businesses that, help define the Upper East Side. And nobody is really taking that into account. And it's a shame. It really is. And I don't think we're going to see one more affordable unit of housing. And in fact, everything's, focused toward the build, when again, we still have upwards of 100,000 empty apartments right now. And it would take 15 to 20 years to build those apartments. And it seems to me that rather than focus on punishing areas that haven't started building new units, the administration should focus on trying to open up those housing units that are around. I mean, 6,000 in NYCHA and the rest all around town. I mean, and we looked at those numbers when we were doing City of Yes. And I think the real number was anywhere between 100 and almost 200,000 empty units. And that's a lot of housing that's going just empty. So I don't know how to quantify that and where those are, but I think they're all over the city.
Chair, can I respond to that?
Yeah.
Okay, so a couple of things. First, on whether your community district will be ranked in the bottom 12. We made a map that speculated on how they might be ranking them, and we showed your district being on the cusp, meaning close to being on the bottom 12, but not in the bottom 12. You do not realize how few affordable housing units are produced in Staten Island and Eastern Queens and Southern Brooklyn, right? I mean, there are very, very few, right? And so some of those places are definitely going in. And while your community district has a lot of housing units, and so it's hard to make that rate number go up, it's you have more than a lot of the community districts. So you may not be on that list. It's going to be close. And then regarding the other issues, your thoughts on City of Yes. I encourage your board to consider taking your concerns about this very important citywide policy, which is the major tool for meeting the goals of the Fair Housing Plan, and addressing its failures in your district to the Department of City Planning. And with new leadership, you're going to have different people there who may address your concerns differently. And so I just, I encourage you to do an informational meeting and, really explore the failures and what you think would work. As was pointed out earlier, I did list some things, but really there are many, many other things that you all could be looking at as different solutions that may be better for your community district to affect the fact that it's already very dense with all of these walk-up units, which are relatively affordable, if not income restricted. And what do you do about that in that context, right? And how do you help preserve those? And that's a discussion that hasn't been had with the Department of City Planning in years. And maybe the new administration is willing to have that discussion.
Well, I mean, you could see in the transfer, the recent bankruptcy case, with all of those units, which the city tried to intervene and stop the transfer, that was completely unsuccessful. And the arguments that were made in those cases, essentially that the original landlord went bankrupt because they were rent stabilized and rent controlled units in the building, and the costs of keeping them up, they just literally walked away from $353 million worth of real estate. And you know, those are kinds of issues I think that need to be addressed in terms of, you know, the current state of empty apartments and how we get that moving. And as much as people, again, want to focus on these new units, it's the problem, you know, I think the harder problems to solve, Adam is shaking his head, I think in agreement, is how we deal with this inability to match up these empty units, the concerns of landlords and the concerns of tenants to have affordable housing. Because I think we're going to see more of this, meaning people who own multiple units just walking away from them. And I think there were $12 million of violations and fines. And basically the city negotiated as part of this Pinnacle is the case I'm talking about, down to $2 million that the new landlord is going to have to pay. So I think it's a lose-lose for everyone unless we really start looking at the realities of the present housing market, as opposed to thinking that the super talls are going to save or solve our affordable housing crisis. And the other thing is, I mean, I cannot blame these not-for-profits who are selling their air rights. That the one thing that City of Yes has really enabled, because that's the only way that they can afford to keep their buildings up, given what else is happening in terms of the regulatory scheme, et cetera, et cetera. So I think we're going to see a lot more of that. I mean, on the Upper East Side, because we do have a lot of historic buildings, not-for-profits. And I think it's going to have the opposite effect up here. I don't know if you agree, in terms of we're going to see more tall buildings as a result of these not-for-profit transfer of air rights.
Oh, I would agree with that. And especially considering that they can receive bulk waivers from the CPC for it, right? You can make that floor area fit on the site.
Thank you.
Thanks, Valerie. And Marco, you have another comment? Question?
Yes, two comments. The first, this is a point of information. Now, the lot merger regulations used to be, as long as you touch 12 feet, 10 feet, you can transfer the rights. No anymore. After the development on the Upper West Side, you really had to have an adjacent lot. That is the way that to transfer the rights. And the other point is the 800 Fifth Avenue. That building, it was approved under the Board of Estimates. The Board of Estimates was abolished in 1990, and they didn't build according to what was granted. So now the developer, they had to file, and it's more likely they're gonna ask in DOV to use the building code 1968 because it's the most convenient. And that's I used, by the way, myself. And at the time that they demolish the most of the 60% now is considered a new building. As a new building, now all the regulations, it will come on place. So the only part, the enlargement that they have, and the question that I have against this building, that will be in the section that they want to match at 300 feet. And I don't think DOB is going to allow that, because maybe the first part they're going to allow because they have drawings, they have certificate of occupancy. But again, it's up to the interpretation of DOB. But the other section, the enlargement, they're not going to match 300 feet, because when they didn't build, they didn't need it. If they didn't need it, so the regulation expired. That is my point of view of that part. In addition, the Board of Estimates disappeared, was abolished. So now it's more likely, my impression is, they will come, if they want to do what they are proposing in landmarks, they will come for that part. And maybe they come for everything. I don't know. In addition, the bulkhead, they added like a 6-7 feet, something like that. They will come too, because they cannot keep increasing more no compliance. So this is the 2 points that I would like to raise. Thank you.
Thank you, Marco. Peggy Price?
Hi, thank you, Elizabeth. And thank you to George. George provided us with some very valuable information about 3 buildings on the Upper East Side that were not providing affordable housing. And I just wondered what, if anything, the committee wanted to do or say about what we learned concerning those buildings, or if there was some action we thought we should take in regards to the problem that George has pointed out to us. Write a letter or pass a resolution or something, or not, or
Yes. Valerie? Please unmute.
Well,
Valerie.
yeah. I think this committee is perfectly placed to start putting together a letter, or the framework for what we've been trying to do, what we think might work. I think using Marco's statistics about all the housing that we've actually lost, I think we're one of the few community boards that has actually kept track of that, thanks to Marco. I was talking to a lot of the other chairs about that, but to show, where that's going, I think we have an opportunity to work with. I know George is working with some other community boards that are putting together housing reports. And if we could do something very similar, and George can speak to that, I think it would be helpful if as many boards from Manhattan could come forward with their housing reports. Part of it's showing how City of Yes hasn't really resulted in any units, our proactive approach for taking areas that we think can produce housing. And I think the climate is ripe to see if we can have some effect. I know that the new speaker, who we're all familiar with, is very interested in making the city council proactive in terms of coming forward with not a reactive plan, like was actually having to react to City of Yes, but coming forward with actual proposals. So I think if we resolved that this committee was going to work to put that together. I know that at the end of the year, we were working on a letter to send to city planning about what we thought were some issues with how the Spitzer building, I call it, came up with their affordable housing tax credits. The holdback there is there really is no head of city planning. So I kind of didn't want to send it out until we could actually direct it at somebody. But we're going to do that as well. So, I mean, the co-chairs are, I'm sure, can listen, and you guys can work towards putting something together to show what we're trying to do, what we're seeing, et cetera, et cetera. So I think that would be a worthwhile mission for the committee to work on a go forward basis, and also help to address. I mean, I know that we get a lot of, and when I say we, the board office gets a tremendous number of inquiries from people about how these buildings are allowed to go up. And you know, everyone's outraged by the 83rd Street building being, you know, 500 feet at, quote unquote, technically as of right. I mean, I don't know if that's actually accurate, but it sounds like it is, unfortunately. And people need to be more cognizant of what, again, I keep going back to this as of right concept is, and maybe as of right is, again, not a one size fits all concept. But you know, the co-chairs can talk about how they want to proceed down that road. But I think that would be a really good plan for 2026 to enter that discussion.
Well, I just want to praise our committee. We had a proposal that we could not get through city planning for 2 special zoning districts for First, Second, Third, and York Avenues, which were the only streets and avenues on the Upper East Side that didn't have special zoning districts or contextual zoning protections. And the proposal, among other things, saved the tenement buildings with their affordable housing in it, among other things. It had a height limit, which I think preserved the scale and character. And during the they did not agree even to certify it, the proposal, but that proposal, a lot of the buildings that people say are perfectly horrible and they're underestimating how horrible they are and counterproductive. Almost every one of them would have been prohibited under the special zoning districts that we proposed. So it's something that this committee has worked on, and we can't, because everything was lost during the years, the context is not there to protect anymore. But I think that this is an issue that we've worked on for a long time. Adam? Please, yeah.
The only comment I'll have to any letter we write is that people should consider that, you know, the typical pre-development period is 9 months, 12 months, 15 months, and that's assuming someone has bought a site on the date of the change in the city of Yes. So it's difficult to make judgments about how City of Yes has done in our district, because these things take time, and building buildings take time, filing plans take time, buying sites take time. So if we're to publish something in early 2026 that says City of Yes has done nothing for our community district, I think it would be disingenuous, and it would be inaccurate. So we should think about, can put it together, but we should probably wait till some more data comes in until later in the year to really come up with some sort of judgment about how City of Yes has impacted our district. That's it.
Thank you. Sharon?
I wanted to thank Anthony, Elizabeth, and Ed for inviting George James. And George, thank you so much for your presentation. You know, I didn't get a sense, George, after your presentation, I didn't get a sense of how you felt overall about the City of Yes. And I'm very interested in your opinion. It appears, and you'll have to expand on this a tad bit, but it does appear overall that affordable housing will continue to be built in those areas where affordable housing was being built in the first place. You have some incremental changes that certainly will happen in some areas where affordable housing didn't traditionally where affordable housing was not traditionally built. But it does appear as if those areas where affordable housing was not built, where there were efforts to increase density, for example, in Community District 1 or Community District 8, that overall, generally speaking, it'll be about the same. And so, I would appreciate hearing from you, your thoughts, having done this research. I'm sure you step back from, what research you were looking at and saying, wow, overall, XYZ seems to be happening overall within the city, under the city of Yes.
Gosh, that's a kind of open-ended question, Sharon. I will say, in terms of my views, is that, at 1,386 pages, City of Yes for Housing Opportunity was enormous, and it's a mixed bag. And like any other sort of enormous change, there are good and bad, right? There's some really, like, there's some stuff in there that, yeah, of course, we should have always been like this. It's like an obvious change that should have been made. And then there are other things that you just go, wow, I'm really surprised that that's in there. And then I'm really surprised that this was, proposed without necessarily input from the community boards, right? An application certifies and you're being told what to think about, what do you think about this? And when in fact you should have had input on it before it was certified. And so I think that's really, from a community planning perspective, my belief is that the people who know what's best for their communities are the people who are in this room, right? The people who are there, right? There shouldn't be other people making decisions about what happens in your community districts. You should be active participants up front like you are, but early in the process, not at the end of the process. That said, I do think that as on a citywide basis, you see that City of Yes is producing more housing, more affordable housing. I am talking to, relatively small developers who are, trying to use these new tools in single family neighborhoods, right? You can now build apartment houses in single family neighborhoods and all across the city. And it's a pretty dramatic change, and it will be producing some yield. I just.
But do you see a sense, and I apologize,
Yeah.
but do you see a sense, George, that certainly that type of housing, has been produced, overall in places like Brooklyn and the Bronx, certainly, Staten Island.
Yep.
It's Staten Island, certainly not, because there's so low density, and because of some previous rezonings that have happened in Staten Island. But overall, I get the sense that those areas will continue to produce will continue to have some affordable housing.
Absolutely.
And whereas other areas that traditionally have not had affordable housing, particularly in Manhattan, won't get it.
That's the problem, is that when you look at it at the neighborhood level, and if you think from the fair housing perspective that you want to open up what they call well-resourced neighborhoods to affordable housing, and that's where we're not seeing the market respond to the incentives, right? So,
So do you think the creation of the city of yes was purposeful in because it appears that it's almost maintaining the status quo?
oh, I don't know the answer to that, but I do know that the city of yes is the implementation of the new New York plan, right? There is a plan that was developed by this committee called the New New York, and I don't think anybody in this room was on that committee, and I think that no one on any community board was on that committee. And if you look at the people who were on that committee, there were certain interests which, are that benefit from the way City of Yes is playing out. Now, was it all spelled out from the beginning like that? I have no idea, Sharon. I don't know. But I will say that the whole idea that, the incentives 485X is going to mean that we're going to see more rentals being developed in the Manhattan core, and those rentals are going to be, partially affordable. Well, that's just not happening yet. Right? It's just not. There's been 6 developments in all of Manhattan that have used UAP. 6. Now, Adam is absolutely right. These things take time, right? But
Yes.
still, we are seeing condo developments that are going up, but we're not seeing the rentals. And so early signs suggest it is not performing as intended in the Manhattan core. And so in the Manhattan core, you have to think, well, what other solutions can there be if the one we've been given isn't working the way it's supposed to? And that's really, I think, the exciting next step. The exciting next step is figuring out what solutions, what kind of plan you develop, and then what kind of solutions you can develop to implement that plan to realize the vision that you want to see.
Thank you. Thank you, George.
Thank you. And our last customer, I think, is Michelle.
Thank you, Elizabeth. Thanks very much, George. I just want to say that the whole concept of the city of yes, in my view, was built on a false premise. And that was that height was going to be the answer. That if you just made it big enough, it would be inclusive enough. You mentioned Julie Menon, that you're going to talk to her. Well, Marco and I made a presentation to Julie. She could not have been less interested in a height restriction. We talked to her about R10A. We talked to her about height limits as what we have our resolution on York first, second, and third. Could not be less interested. We made a presentation to every one of our elected officials. The only ones who seemed to have gotten it was Liz Kruger. She was very sensitive to it, but on the state level, she didn't have much to say. And Rebecca Seawright, who was sensitive to it, but again, didn't really have much input. We met personally with Dan Garodnick's representative. Height was all he would talk about. I spoke to Dan Garodnick one-on-one personally, and he said to me, Michelle, you will never see a height limit in this city. So this is their idea. Excuse me. And the fact that it doesn't seem to be working because you need other parameters, not just height, it seems like there's nobody to talk to. This is an underlying concept that they have. Aside from the fact that to me, it was very arrogant to initiate zoning changes that undermine 70 years of zoning, and it was not necessarily done by people with expertise and experience. It was done, in my opinion, from what I observed, people with a false premise, and they in no way contemplated, the consequences of any of it. I mean, just give an example like, you can have agriculture in an apartment. Like a building could be residential, but you can have a farming I mean, no, didn't they think of the possible consequences of that, where that could possibly go wrong? Or the abuse of people who had their life savings, they bought a private house and they had a concept of the land that surrounded them. They bought it. They nourished it. That's what they wanted. And now you told not only them but their neighbors that they could put a little ancillary house next to that, which could be a breach of the distance that you thought you but there was I never saw any consequences, and we never got any answers when we asked the questions. That was even more disturbing. So you're optimistic. I'm very pessimistic. To me, our aim, however we can do it, is to just mitigate, just do whatever we can to mitigate this disaster. I don't know. We'll have to bang our heads together for that one. But thanks for everybody's effort. Thanks, George. Appreciate all the info.
Can I respond just briefly on that? I
Sure.
just want to say that what Dan Garodnick said and what the people at the Department of City Planning said was, it's very important. And absolutely, you have to listen to them because they have all of the power, and that's, they direct the policy. But Dan Garodnick is there, but he is leaving.
Well,
And
he's
there
not
will
there
be-
now. No. I mean, I'm hoping that things have changed. But frankly, that was a big surprise to hear something so, dogmatic from
Yes,
him.
well,
Yeah, there'll be other people, but
There'll
that's
be
what
other
this is going to
people,
count on.
and with other people, there is the potential for new leadership and new ideas. And I just encourage you and your board to think about this as an opportunity. It's an opportunity when there's new leadership to present ideas, present solutions that work for your community. And people are going to be more likely to listen to you when they're new than when they're set in their ways.
I think that we may have a better opportunity to try to have input on the new leadership, because depending on who the new leadership is, they will come with their own ideas, et cetera, et cetera. They're not necessarily a clean slate. And the choice that will be made for who they are will probably depend, who's ever making the choice, the person they choose is going to reflect their point of view.
Yes.
So where the opportunity is, to my mind, I don't know how we do this, but is to try to impact who the new appointees are. That to me would be more valuable.
Okay. Thank you, Michelle. And Valerie would like to talk.
Sorry, I'm just two things. I just want to go back to something DJ said about looking at opportunities and I know how much time this board has spent on a height restriction. I just think when you go forward and the first words out of your mouth are restriction as a tool for trying to get a positive thing doesn't get well received. So, but I think we have other things here. We have this site on 73rd, which was the CUNY site. Mm-hmm. It's owned by the city of New York. Again, I've charged this committee to let's put something together related to that site and show that, that would be a great site for workforce development housing in our community. And I think to your point, Michelle, people are coming in new. This is a plan that we could come up with that is, for all intents and purposes, city-owned land. I mean, they've created a sort of morass about the ownership of it and who has control of it. But I mean, I think it's a great site for teachers and nurses and all sorts of things that this community needs and would bring a workforce affordable housing in a meaningful way. And I think we should try to push for that as something really tangible that's been sitting there open. And I think that's maybe a project that we can focus on. And then George, I just want to move we don't have to talk about that at length tonight, but I'm sort of in my role charging this committee to try to get on top of that site. So at least, we can send out something that says, hey, start moving your what to get this property properly utilized. We don't need another commercial business here. This is what we need. You own this property. Here's a great way to show how city property can be turned into affordable housing. And we can push for that. And I think, from a variety of points of view, it's a win-win for us to do that. We should get on that. The other thing, George, and if you can help us with that, that would be great. And then the other thing maybe you could just talk about is the disbanding of that unit of the City Planning Commission that was doing design and that all of a sudden disappeared.
Right. So in December, there was an announcement that the Urban Design Division of the Department of City Planning, which my understanding was set up when Amanda Burden was chair, was being disbanded, and the resources were being distributed to the boroughs. And so it's essentially the idea is that this no longer needs to be its own division in the Department of City Planning, or at least this is the official line, that this no longer needs to be a separate division within the Department of City Planning. This is a core competence that should be in every one of the borough offices. And the Urban Design Division did good work. I will say, or at least for most of its history, it did good work. But I would say that I was astounded, at the Lenox Hill urban design at the ground floor, which was terrible and was only fixed by the city council. And so I was like, where that urban design would have never allowed that to go forward, and they did. And so maybe that was a sign that there were issues there, right? Meaning that they were being sidelined or weren't being listened to or whatever. And so there has been a lot of discussion in the planning and design community over what this means. And I have no inside information. I've asked people, and I've only been getting the official line that this is just about a reorganization of resources, and this competence is about what all of the borough offices do now. It doesn't need to be separate. And that may be true. It may also just be a reallocation of resources to get more resources into the borough offices, because they go through planners, junior planners at the Department of City Planning, like all the time. And this may be a way of trying to, open more resources and more, ways for people to move up within the department offices. I don't really know, and be interested to hear if anybody here has any other observations.
Well, I'm just going to jump in here. Since Valerie intentionally or otherwise moved the agenda to our second item, the only thing I want to add to what George just said is that one of the goals that the new mayor has emphasized is the need for some kind of comprehensive plan for New York City. And the problem with having all of the planners at the Department of City Planning dispersed and not sitting effectively in the same room is that there is no way to develop a comprehensive plan without having a group that works together on a comprehensive plan. It's a little bit like, and I'm an architect. It's a little bit like having a group work on one group of floor plans, and somebody else works on another group of floor plans, and somebody else works on the massing, and they don't ever sit in the same room. And each one has its own special interests. Obviously, the planners in Staten Island will have a different way of looking at their issues than they'll have a different way of looking from the way that people in Manhattan or Queens or Brooklyn might look. And I think it's a mistake if we're trying to do something that feels citywide to have everything dispersed. It feels like there's something else, sort of going on there other than what they're saying to us.
Also, the timing was extraordinarily suspect because you don't do a big reorganization like that right before the administration changes. I mean, that's at minimum, it's rude.
Right. And it's sort of heading out the door. It's sort of as he heads out the door, he says, "Oh yeah, well, you guys are going to have to just move around."
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Michelle, you have something else to say?
Yeah, I just want to make a quick point that when we went around, Marco and I, to do these presentations, we led with that we have a presentation to increase affordable housing. We never said anything about height restrictions until we got into it, and it was the bonus for R10A, and 20% for affordable housing. But that's basically how we presented it. And we were shocked. I mean, Rebecca and Liz understood that all of the buildings that were going up were low density buildings. They were 500 feet high and they had 20 condos. And they were very disturbed about it. Also, Esplanade was another one who was very interested in that. But I can't say that our local people were. Keith wasn't excited. Julie wasn't excited. I mean, he's gone. I don't know how Virginia Maloney feels about this. Some of you know her well. I don't know her. But certainly we should be talking to her. Maybe this is something she'd want to champion.
Okie doke. Well, I thank you very, very much, George. We're all much better equipped to deal with our problems here. And I hope that whatever citywide plans go, respect neighborhood character and therefore do listen to community boards. And I think we have our work ahead of us. And I hope Michelle has found the problem, the community board and our committee had no reception at all from the Department of City Planning. So I think that we do have a problem, but that we have achieved things in the past and have in the past found much more reception than we found now. So anyhow, we're now so grateful to you, George. And I'm afraid we can guarantee that we're going to be bothering you for a while, if not longer. And okay, now it's Anthony's item to discuss. Anthony, to you.
Yes. Okay. Well, we've really sort of the comments about city planning have already largely been discussed. So I suggest that we move on to old and new business. Is there any old business? Because I know we have some new business. And that I think is coming from Marco. Please.
Yeah, I don't know how to put it if it's a new and old business.
Oh, all right.
Honestly, I don't have no idea. But the point is a complaint. Allow me to share my presentation. It will take a couple of minutes. I
Sure.
hope so. Okay. Let me see. Can everybody see it?
Yeah.
Okay. Let me see. Hold on. Let me see if I can. Okay, that's better. Okay. The impact of Extel's 1524 First Avenue development on Santa Monica Church in our community. At the community meeting, the representatives of Extel Development, led by Gary Barnett, presented their proposal for the tower at 1524 First Avenue. They spoke proudly of the project as an outright development, suggesting that because it complied with zoning, it was beyond community concerns. At the time, I did not fully understand the long-term sustainability and structural consequences such a massive project could impose to its surroundings, especially on Santa Monica Church, a historical and spiritual anchor for our community. During the presentation, or during the meeting, a community member, called Spagnoletti, asked a simple but powerful question. Quote, what can you do for our community? End of quote. Mr. Barnett's response was dismissive. Quote, I will give you an ice cream. An ice cream. That statement captured the imbalance of power in the room. A multi-billion-dollar developer minimizing legitimate community concern with a joke. As the construction progressed, it became clear that this out-of-scale development was not being built with adequate attention to sustainability or environmental responsibility. While Local Law 95 was not yet in effect during construction, this building will not be required to comply with it, a task that will be extremely difficult given its current design and energy profile. This development does not merely dominate the skyline. It consumes excessive energy, blocks light and air, and permanently alters the environment balance of our neighborhood. This development demolished 79 affordable units to build a medical facility. As long as a long-time member of Santa Monica Church, I must report the physical damage that this construction has caused. This is the interior of the church. Now you see it, leaks on the columns that damage the church, and another leaks that you can see that's coming. This is coming basically for the vibration. Let me put it this way. One day, while the foundation excavation was underway, I visited the city bank across the street from the construction site. While standing at the teller window, I felt a strong vibration beneath my feet. And I asked the teller if she felt them too. She replied, yes, this is happening the whole day. This statement, this constant vibration, unquestionable, traveled through the underground and affected most of the fragile structural zone of the church, particularly the joints between the nave and the lateral sections. The capping and ceiling on those areas failed, and leaks soon followed. As you can see in this series of pictures that I showed to you, and now the church are in the campaign to repair these problems. In conclusion, this is not an isolated incident. It is a clear example of how unchecked, oversized development can damage historical institutions, destabilize community, and disregard environmental responsibilities. Our community deserves more than jokes. Our church deserves protections, and our neighborhood deserves accountability, transparency, and sustainable development. Thank you.
Thank you, Marco. I think in general, this is a problem we face when any new building goes up next door to certainly next door to a building like a church, but really to any building. And I don't know enough about the circumstances or the pre-planning that's required by the building department, what they did, what they planned, what they said they do, and whether or not Excel was remediating any of these conditions. I just don't know. I was in the church a few months ago, and actually it looked pretty good, but I honestly don't know. Now we have a member of the public, Mary Chan.
Hello, this is Mary Chan. Thank you for having this meeting. I'm so happy that I stayed on and listened. And Marcos, thank you for bringing this up, because this has been a sore sight in front of my eyes from the very beginning it has started. I'll keep it short. I've gone to almost all of their meetings, and I remember asking them, what are you having in this building? What is it going to be? And it took a while for them to decide what they were going to have. So finally they came up with HSS. And at one point I had asked them, I said, with all the ongoings that's going to be happening with HSS, where are you planning to store your hazardous waste? Well, obviously, if you're having procedures done and gases and everything, you have to have a special place for disposal. I'm a retired registered nurse, so I know what it entails, what's hazardous. I'm not talking just about chemo. I'm talking about blood, syringes, and everything, because there's limited amount of space where people are entering and leaving in that building. I just was appalled by the answer when he turned to his colleague and then returned back to me and says, we're not having hazardous waste. Okay, I understand he may not know what was happening, but going forward now, the building has not had any real construction happening. I live directly across the street from it. I have many recordings of everything that was been going on. And I wanted to know, what is the delay that they are not in operations yet? It's really concerning me, because I'm just wondering, is anybody checking on the regulations of what they really had put in their plans? Are people checking the perspectives of the offices and anything hazardous that could happen? Did anybody check the correct height of the building? Just curious, you know.
Thank you. Normally, although there have been errors, intentional and otherwise, in the past, but normally the buildings that are built the height that they're supposed to be built. I think that what we see in front of us at the corner there is, it appears to be exactly what they promised they would build in terms of its bulk. I think that my understanding was that it was medical offices, not procedure spaces. Any hazardous waste would be disposed the way it would in a small, let's say if the blood tests, things like that. And I don't think that it's not as though they are doing operations or procedures in that building. I believe it's just offices, or at least that was our understanding. But we can certainly look into it.
I think Anthony probably is empty because they don't have the certificate of occupancy.
Right.
Or
It's
the
empty
temporary
because they're not technically
This is why
done.
they maintain. There are many issues that they didn't provide, and no TCO was issued yet. So this is why it's maintained vacant.
Thank you, Marco.
You're welcome.
Michelle.
Yeah. It's sad about the church. If the church were a landmark, which I don't know if it is or it isn't, the landmark, oh, it isn't, but because if it were, the Landmarks Commission is supposed to protect any landmark that is in jeopardy of construction that's either adjacent to it, near it, etc., and that the Landmarks Commission would go out and actually make sure that it was protected, do regular inspections and checkups. I don't know if this qualifies to become a landmark, or even whether or not the church would be interested. We have found in the past that the churches are the least interested in landmark status because it inhibits, the commercial, selling it and repairs and all that. So they're not always your best, your best advocate. But if it were a landmark and if it's qualified to be a landmark, that may be the way to go to protect it. Although it seems to be after the fact now.
Anthony, may I say something?
Please, Marco.
Well, I found in my latest research, there is a very strong regulations from the Department of Buildings that protect all the properties under construction. And they are extremely strict, but most of the time, DOB never enforce and nobody go in that direction. And I can share with you that memo from the Department of Buildings I have somewhere, where describe everything in detail, what to do, how to do it, and how to protect all the buildings, not the church only, for all of them. And
right, it's the
only issue is probably, honestly, myself is probably the best word that I can do is just only give it to the committee. The committee has to handle it directly with the Department of Buildings, and the Department of Buildings, they had to ask the developer, as well, I think the contractor and the designer, to do the proper corrections, and if they did or not the previous evaluation before to start. Even though the church was public and everybody came, and the church was recently repaired the roof before to start the construction. So yes, it is very strict. I was very impressed myself, by the way. And that's I just learned recently. Thank you.
Thank you, Marco. Valerie.
I'm sorry, Marco, but I'm a little confused. I don't understand. I mean, why isn't the church making a claim against Extel for the repairs? I mean, they must have insurance. I mean, it would be the same with any building with a construction project next to it. You know, before the construction starts, you take all the pictures, you do all the documentation. And if things start to happen, you start making claims, and then, you know, you file a lawsuit. I mean, I'm not really sure. I mean, you know, you can say what you want about Gary Barnett and Extel, but I'm not sure what I have to be honest, I'm not sure what the issue is here.
Well,
Has Monica's done anything? Say Monica's done anything?
let me explain you. Santa Monica sold the air rights, and this is why we have a super tall building. And they took some millions of dollars. But talking with the with the with the father of the church,
Yeah, I know.
they don't usually in the church they don't negotiate anything. The Archdiocese of New York make the decision and the negotiations of that part. Yeah, they took several millions of dollars. Yes, what in the way that works, I don't want to go in that direction.
No, but I'm not even talking about the sale of the air rights.
No,
I mean, that.
let me explain you. Let me explain you exactly. Probably at the time when they did the agreement or the selling, Excel is extremely smart. This is no stupid guy. Probably maybe they put something in the contract that is not responsible or something else. I don't know. If I just speculate that part.
Well, I mean,
Because I didn't.
the Archdiocese of New York is a very sophisticated party as well. They own tons of properties in New York.
Right.
And so I would, you know, I would not say that, you know, Gary Barnett is any more sophisticated than the Archdiocese of New York in terms of real estate and negotiation. And so I'm not sure what you're asking us to do here.
No. I mean, I said this is a good example. The church, I approached to the father, and the father doesn't. It wasn't interested to go in that direction, to move in that direction, because his business is to deal with God. He's not in the other business. He's now looking to obtain some money from the community members, and that's basically I was reluctant to collaborate in that direction because I know, like you described very well, they have an excellent case to take millions of dollars without no problem. But again, these kind of regulations or these kind of the issues, I don't want to go in that direction myself. And this is what I said is a good example that we had to be very vigilant in the next developments. And see, if the church doesn't want to do anything, well, what can I do?
Well, I mean, well, so somebody's going to have to pay.
I'm very upset as a parishioner of that church.
Well, then I would recommend to you that you write a letter to the Archdiocese of New York and tell them that as a parishioner of that church, that, you know, they should be making sure that the church is in good repair for the longevity of the congregation and the church. I mean, but I think, you know, all I can think about when you're telling this story is like when they're building the Second Avenue subway and we all had to take pictures in our buildings and put in, you know, like almost like earthquake monitors to see if there were cracks in our wall. And I don't know about making a claim against Gary Barnett, but I can tell you it's much harder to make a claim against the MTA for reimbursement for all the damage that they did in building the Second Avenue subway. The people next door to me are still fighting them to get their sidewalk repaired with all the heavy equipment that the MTA stored there during the construction. So, you know, that's what that's what I would say. I mean, yeah, I think we tell everybody if there's construction, whether it's going to be Lenox Hill Hospital or, you know, Gary Barnett with a new building, that there are certain things that people need to do. And I can't believe that St. Monica's doesn't have an insurance policy that would allow them to make a claim for damage. And then their insurance company would sue Gary Barnett for reimbursement if they thought it was related to the construction next door. But you know.
Well, the damage is definitely for that. I warranty that part. The other part that you bring is the father is reluctant to hear my comments, and that's what I said. Well, let me present to the community board what's going on, and I'm not asking the community board to take decision, but usually Gary Parnett, they're coming and they say that do as a right of development. No anymore right now. I'm seeing that the development that they're doing right now on Madison Avenue. I think right away it caused my issue of the mechanicals and everything. So he tried to push in different directions, and the point is, I tried to tell him that we're not gonna accept one ice cream because he has to comply with all the rules and regulations. This is a new period of time that the Department of Buildings had to enforce. I don't know how they're gonna prove, but we had to have a position in that direction.
Okay, thank you, Marco.
Thank you.
I wonder, as we've now crested 9 o'clock, if there is a motion to adjourn. Michelle, Valerie, etc. Second?
Sorry.
Okay. Then we will see you all next month. Thank you.